let's talk about these three hormones. So as you go into your reproductive life, you're made for one reason, to have babies. And again, that's not a sexist statement, that's the biology. In fact, if you don't have babies, our earth goes away in one generation, right? So biologically, you're made to have babies. So you have an estrogen that needs to produce an egg, then you ovulate, and then you have a decrease in your estrogen, then you have an elevated progesterone that keeps the baby alive until the placenta takes over at about the 8th week. But what about testosterone in that role? Well, testosterone is kind of important for driving the experience, okay? If I remove your testosterone, maybe you have sex, but maybe you're not interested in it at all. And so you need testosterone. You also need testosterone for your muscles and for your spine. And it's very important in your brain. And so you need all three. And so nobody really talks about that. And then you move forward in your life. And now you're 30 or 35 or 40. And all of a sudden you have brain fog and you have no energy and you have fatigue. Back to you have children. And all of a sudden your fatigue is dramatically lower than it was a year ago, and you have the same number of children. Why am I so fatigued? So we draw a panel of labs at that point. So again, I've listened to your history. I have an idea what's going on. We've talked about your diet, your activity, your sleep, and try to make sure that we're identifying all the functional medicine aspects of it. And then we get a panel of labs, and we call them the Well Woman Labs. I love that name. And it's a CBC, so it's a complete blood count. So we know, hey, are you anemic because you're 40 years old and you're having crazy uterine bleeding? We do a metabolic profile. I need to make sure that your sodium, your potassium, your liver enzymes are fine. Make sure your blood sugar is not elevated. I check your ferritin. That tells me if there's inflammation in your body and how well your bone marrow is working. I check your complete thyroid panel. So this is a transparent statement here. In my entire career, never did I order a thyroid antibody until a year and a half ago. I don't know why I did. But we're not educated that way. We're educated that you check a TSH and a free T4, and then we diagnose hypothyroidism in women, and we put them on Synthroid. That's a standard treatment across the country. So in the functional medicine world, hey, no, you need to do a whole panel. So TSH, free T4, free T3, and a TPO. And then we also check a vitamin D. 99.999% of our patients are low in vitamin D. Now, I want to talk about vitamin D because vitamin D is, when the value comes back, it's on a range, and every lab has a range. So vitamin D is normal range from 30 to 100. And so I had a patient today, she was 31. I also had another patient today, she was 14. So many doctors would say, okay, the patient with 31, you're a normal range, you're fine. Patient with 14, well, you're a little bit low. So take 1,000 international units, maybe 2,000 international units of vitamin D, and let's try to get you up. But they don't recheck it, and vitamin D goes up very slowly. And they don't talk about being out in the sun because it's hours of UV radiation. That's a trivia question. What's the only vitamin that you make? Vitamin D, right? And how do you make it? Sitting out in the sun.
Or eating a lot of cholesterol.
Yes. So we check a vitamin D. 99.999% of our patients are low. And that's just not our patients. That's everywhere in the world. And then a B12 level. And we, again, use optimal levels. And 95%, probably 98% of all of our patients are suboptimal in B12. And then we check a testosterone level and a free testosterone level, an estrogen level, specifically estradiol. There's 3 estrogens, E1, E2, and E3. We check E2, which is estradiol. And then we check an FSH to identify where you are in the menopause state. And then I have you come back and we go over all of these. And this would be a classic scenario. I'm going to go over your labs. Now, you're 32 years old, and I would expect your CBC to be normal unless you have crazy heavy bleeding. If you have heavy, crazy bleeding, then we need to investigate because as a 32-year-old, what's the most logical explanation? Uterine bleeding. So we would get a further history. Hey, are your periods heavy? Now, for you, they may be completely normal. I've always had this. So it's not out of the ordinary for you, but your anemia shows different. So we would do an ultrasound on you and then talk to you about uterine ablation if you're done having babies, okay? Then we check your metabolic, we'll go over your metabolic profile. You're slender, so I don't expect you to have diabetes, but if you had an elevated blood sugar, then I would do a fasting blood sugar, and then I would do a hemoglobin A1C, okay? I then move into the vitamin D. So vitamin D, again, 99.99% of our patients are low, and I'm gonna recommend that you spend more time out in the sun and that you take, again, I'm going to use both of these examples on these patients, The patient with 31, I'm going to have her take vitamin A, vitamin D, and vitamin K. The vitamin D I'm going to give her is 10,000 international units. So we have BioT has a nutraceutical called ADK10, and I'm going to put her on ADK10, have her take it every night, and then I'm going to recheck her value in 3 months. Because remember, it's a slow rise. The patient that was 14 today, I'm going to put her on 20,000 international units of vitamin D. So I'll have her take an ADK10 from BioT, and then I'll have her take another vitamin D that she can buy from Amazon. On B12, I do 2 things. So value today, 486. I want the patient to be 1,200. And again, the range, I want to be optimal. When you're sitting there talking to a patient and you tell a patient that they're fine with 486 on their B12, I would say back to the doctor, well, fine didn't get you into medical school, right? If you had C averages, which is the bell-shaped curve, that means 80% of the population fall in there, you would be fine. You'd be a C student. Well, you would have never gone to medical school. You had to be optimal. So why aren't we educating our patients to be optimal? And so B12, I would want you in optimal range. It's very hard to get your B12 up. You've got to eat animal products, livers, hearts. People aren't going to do that. So we give B12 injections. Interesting story. My father, 50 years ago, when a woman was going into menopause, or a man, every person over the age of 60 got B12 injections every single month. Now, they didn't do blood work. They just knew that what people needed B12. So in the morning, he'd have 10 patients lined up, boom, 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 give them all their B12, see you next month. Charge $3 for that. A lot more expensive than today. But we give B12 injections. Some patients come in every single month, but I also give prescriptions. I give a 10 cc vial. You take 1 cc every month. And if you feel comfortable giving it or having a family member giving it, then we give B12. And again, we want the optimal range.